What if I told you that you can truly reinvent or transform yourself if you only needed to change these 3 things in your life? In this video, I'm going to reveal what you're probably ignoring, along with 92% of people who give up on manifesting their dream life. It doesn't matter what your age, income, or past experiences are. And no, this is not another self-help video about shadow work. In fact, it's the opposite. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see the person that you want to become? Or do you still see the person that you are today? See, many of us struggle to transform our lives, not because we lack the capability, but because we are uncertain about who we truly want to become. From a young age, society fills us with a bunch of expectations, drowning out the true desires of who we want to be and our true aspirations in life. Sadly, this external noise isn't the only challenge. Our past experiences, especially the negative ones, often leave deep marks on our self-image, which is the mental image we have of ourselves. If we don't replace who we used to be with who we want to be, we begin to question our worthiness, intelligence, and our courage to change. That is what fuels fear. And then we start creating thoughts like, am I good enough? Am I smart enough to even reinvent myself? And better yet, what if I try and I fail? These questions aren't just negative thoughts. They're powerful enough to trigger negative emotion, leading to feelings of being overwhelmed and keeping us from stepping into the life that we truly want. Do you see where I'm going with this? This means if we truly want to reinvent ourselves, we need to start by getting clear on who we want to become and changing our self-image. And girls, this is where the fun can begin. Allow yourself to use your imagination to create that new self-image. How do they look? How do they dress? Where do they live? What do they like to do for a living? Next, I want you to find someone who matches that self-image you just created. But envisioning that new self-image can only go so far. You must also feel like that new self. Let me explain. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Hasquita Velasquez and I'm from Washington Heights, New York. Dímelo. I am Dominican and Puerto Rican. But ever since I was a child, I wanted to become an actress. But you see, I struggled with thoughts like, how does someone like me, with no real role models, brought up in the ghetto, battling with generational poverty and traumas from my parents who unfortunately passed that down to my siblings and me, dare to dream so ambitiously? I had to go and find things that made me feel like I was living that dream. I had to find environments outside of my neighborhood that were supportive. When you start to surround yourself with people who share similar qualities or aspirations, you start to think like that person. You start to move like that person. You start to see things through that person's eyes. Ultimately, creating the feeling of being that person that you want to become. See, it's very similar to acting. In acting, I have to embody the character that I'm playing. I have to create an entire world based on this character. What do they like? How do they dress? What music do they listen to? And so on. This is how we genuinely start to round out this character, aka, in this conversation, our self-image. When I got the audition to play Daisy on Saved by the Bell, immediately fear and doubt try to creep in. But thankfully, I was already practicing everything I'm teaching you in this video. And guess what? I got the role. As you can see, combining self-image with feelings can assist you with reinventing yourself. But things get even more real when you begin to look like the person you imagine in the mirror. And this, my friends, is where fitness and wellness come in. We all know the benefits of working out. You train, you get fit, and you look good. But there's a bigger lesson with training. As you can see, these are the challenges that our bodies go through when we are trying to transform ourselves. Once we get to that last rep, it always feels like it's the hardest. But the moment we push through is when we see that growth and we feel good about ourselves. That is very similar to the challenge that you will see when you are trying to reinvent yourself and you must push through. It can be painful, especially when you first start. But as you continue to push through, you'll notice that you'll become stronger, just like working out, and it'll become easier. When we start to see small results from training, we become more of a believer that reinventing ourselves is a possibility, which inspires us to stay consistent with our transformation. So, why is this important? Because consistency creates new habits. And the more new habits we create while reinventing ourselves, the more it becomes subconscious, aka second nature. Now that you know the 3 things that you need to change in order to reinvent yourself, you might be thinking, even with all this information, 92% is a big number. Will I be a part of the 92% of people who either fail to reinvent themselves or fail to manifest their dream life? And I got you. That won't be you. This is why I created a free downloadable checklist so that you can have something to refer back to when you're on this journey to reinventing yourself. This is us. But we want to be this version of ourselves, this reinvented version. And we've already understood the importance of self-image. We've understood the importance of our environment and making sure we change that. We understood the importance of resistance and that we have to always be pushing through that. But what is this? I'm going to teach you that right now. This thing will trick you. It will make you think that even when you work on your self-image, even when you change your environment, and even when you push past resistance, that what you're doing isn't working. But why is that? Well, let's bring it down here. We have our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And I split it into 2. This way you can have a visualization. The pink, the cute, is the future self. The gray is the current self. Let's quickly understand the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the things that we do that are second nature to us. It's kind of like the things we've already created habit of, which is breathing, blinking, walking, these kinds of things. That's in our subconscious. It's the things we don't have to remind ourselves to do. If we're not breathing, we're obviously gonna Now, when we're looking at our conscious mind, those are the things we have to be a lot more aware of. The things that we are making sure that we do right or making sure that we don't do wrong. So if I'm going to grab a glass of water, I want to make sure that I'm going to pick up that glass correctly. This way it doesn't fall and it breaks. That's the conscious mind, the things that we are constantly having to remind ourselves or make aware of. But what happens when our subconscious mind has a bunch of negative thoughts going through it because of our past experiences, because of the bad habits that we created? Well, if our subconscious is negative, then whenever we have a conscious thought, whenever we're trying to create a conscious thought, it comes in as a negative thought. It doesn't even have a chance to be positive. Because if we're saying things like, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, that's a conscious thought. The conscious thought starts feeding into the subconscious. The subconscious now feeds into the conscious. And so what does that create? It creates a vicious cycle. Now you're almost like in an endless loop. You're in an endless loop of these things of negative on negative on negative. And the more negative conscious thoughts you have, the more negative your subconscious is. And that's what it is. It's a trickle-down effect. So how do we get from this to over here? Instead of saying I'm not good enough, how do we start saying I'm more than enough? How do we feed our conscious mind positive thoughts that trickle down into our subconscious positive? You understand why this happens first. The reason why these things happen is because we have no clarity. When we have no clarity, we create a bunch of pressure on ourselves. We start saying, well, I need to do X, Y, and Z. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I have to do it by a certain day, a certain time. And then we start getting overwhelmed, right? We become overwhelmed and we start overthinking. And when those 2 come together, then we create distractions. And once we are distracted because we don't know where to turn, what to look at first, what to do first, we lack routine. And when we have no routine, we're not consistent. If there's no routine, there's no consistency. We're back here. Feeding the subconscious negative thoughts, feeding the conscious mind negative thoughts. And you already know. Let's break that cycle. We're going to have negative thoughts come. We're going to have positive thoughts come. How do we filter that out? Let's think of it almost like a strainer. Positive and negative coming in here and we're straining it. But the holes are only so big so that the positive thoughts can trickle down into our subconscious. All the negative thoughts, they stay at the top and we throw them out, right? We no longer need those thoughts. We no longer want to serve those thoughts. If we get clear, if we have more clarity, we have less pressure. When we have less pressure applied to ourselves, we're not overwhelmed. And we're not overthinking because now we can actually see this game plan, right? We can see all the stops on our journey. We can see, I got to make a U-turn. I got to take another route because what's happening here isn't going to suit me. And now we're not distracted. Now we know, okay, I have to go here. I have to go there. I'll make a pit stop here. I'll allow some time for this. I'll allow some time for that. But I know exactly where I'm going. I'm not distracted. I can see the end goal. when we're not distracted, we have a routine that not only we can follow, but that we can stay consistent on. When we are consistent, now instead of coming to this side, we are feeding into this side. This trickles down and we create this as a positive. It's no longer going to be negative because remember, we already filtered all of that out. We strained it out so that all the negative thoughts, we're throwing it out, and all the positive thoughts are able to come into our subconscious mind. Our subconscious is feeding our conscious, and our conscious is feeding the subconscious. Now we're on a cycle that we want to be on. This is a roller coaster I don't want to get off of. This is what's going to support us in this journey to reinventing ourselves. Now, as we're feeding the conscious mind here, positive thoughts, positive, right? Positive, all of these become positive. This starts to create our past experiences start to cancel out. Our bad habits start to cancel out because now we're creating new ones here. We're creating new experiences, right? We're creating new habits. And with these new experiences and these new habits, we're able to flourish and function and come in here, and our subconscious mind is going to be positive. And those positive thoughts that we are aware of, we drag them into our subconscious mind. This way, it starts becoming second nature to us. It becomes a part of the mind that we don't have to think about. It becomes a part of our breathing, our blinking, and our walking. And that, my friends, is how we are able to reinvent ourselves. I wish you all the best on this journey. And if you feel like this video can be helpful to someone you may know who might be struggling with reinventing themselves, share it. You never know how you can be helping that person. All right, until next time.